Whenever the Ludomases are presented with a new addition to the family, we place a blank playing card into the box. Our initiate then has the privilege of drawing the card, and Mr. LaBelle will tell us which game to play.
I got chess.
I got Old Maid. Seriously, what the is Old Maid?
Fitch.
So I just take out the card?
My dear, it is your turn.
What does it say, girl?
Oh, it says hide and seek. Are we really gonna play that? Everything okay?
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
There's nothing to fear except God. Whatever that means to you.
Do I look like someone who cares what God thinks? Why do I say this? Because we got Holy Ghost power!
You're listening to a podcast exploring faith and fear, what scares us and what saves us. This is the fear of God.
Hello, and welcome to the Fear of God, where we explore the holy in the horrific at the intersection of faith and fear, dissecting what scares us in order to find what saves us. Welcome to week 4 of our look back at some of your listener-voted top 10 horror films of 2019. So 3 weeks ago, we started with Joker. 2 weeks ago, like a rock upside the head, we dug into Bong Joon-ho's multi-Oscar award-winning Parasite. And last week, we were joined, thank you again, to special literary correspondent Meredith Curran for joining us for our extended conversation about Ari Aster's Midsommar. This week, we are going to be playing lots and lots of games. I hope you're ready, but ready or not, here we come. Speaking to you right now is one of your co-hosts, Reed Lackey. Typically with me is Nathan Rouse, but he told me that the game that was selected for him was Twister. I don't know what it meant. I don't know why he had to suddenly run away to play a game of Twister, but I guess that's part of this whole initiation process. But while we're waiting for him, we would like you, please, to, if you enjoy what we do or if what we've done sounds intriguing to you, then please come find us on Twitter, on Instagram, join our Facebook group for lively discussions and horror and genre-themed books and media and film and just all kinds of fun things happening. Because here, we explore, we don't explain, except for right this minute, when I'm going to explain to you that you can listen to the Fear of God podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Overcast, Castbox. We want to thank you very, very much, the Fogger community, for all that you've done to support us in all of these different avenues. And we want to especially thank our Fogger continuity guru, Steve Beckley, who's recently refreshed and been refreshing our Letterboxd page, so you can go over and find us on Letterboxd as well. But while you're at it, while you're listening to us on your podcast platform of choice, subscribe to us and leave a 5-star rating and or a glowing review. As mentioned, thefearofgodpodcast.com is your new home and our new hub for all things Foggy. So I want you to go and follow fellow Foggers in their Fear of God merch. Speaking of merch, do yourself a favor, click on the merch button to make a merch perch. You can find art from the Fear of God on t-shirts or mugs or cell phone cases or pillows or Nathan!
Right hand red.
Oh my gosh! Is that all you got for your Twitter extravaganza? Just right hand red. That was the
Twitter extravaganza.
Did I say Twitter? I meant Twister.
You did just then.
For your
Twister.
For your Twister extravaganza.
Well, that was just one instruction of many. You missed. I imagine you were chatting the people up. You missed. I had like right foot blue and then left arm green.
You were struggling to conjure the body part there.
Yeah. And then right ear orange. It was weird. It's a new version of Twister. Like,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Twister against humanity, they call it.
Yeah, I bet that would be a very different type of game. Now, I know that generally you're a bit of a game guy. Like you like board games. I recently gifted you that. What was it? Horrified is the name of that game.
Yes, which I still play and I still love so much. So
that's awesome.
So
did you grow up like? Were you like? We've talked about Nintendo and stuff before, and how you excel at that.
Well,
wrestling
by some standards. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. Why don't you just give me a paper cut and put lemon juice in it?
But like board games and stuff, did you grow up doing that?
You know what's funny? Every opportunity I could, yes. But it did not occur as frequently as I would like. Honestly, my board game obsession kind of began more in high school and sort of made its way through college. I always liked board games and games of any sort of variety, but it was difficult for me to find people who were mutually interested in it to get together and play. So yeah.
Well, I've got a really funny story to share about gaming, but before I get to that, I am just curious. What you watching? What you reading?
Oh my gosh.
What you playing?
So exciting.
What you listening to?
Nice.
Yeah. Reed, what you watching, reading, playing, listening to, buddy?
So, the biggest thing, oh man, I'm going to give you just a brief musical cue to give you a hint of what's been on in my world these last few days. Is
that Superman theme?
No.
Richard
no.
Donner? That's,
I must have done it poorly. I must have done it
Indiana
poorly.
Jones.
No, I must have. Wow. I stink on so many levels. Okay.
It's not Star Wars, because I know that one.
Yeah, you do.
I thought I did.
No, not in this day and age, you don't.
No, I don't. It's like I never knew.
All right. Let us not belabor the point. So sincerely, I am very, very excited because I acquired, for however long, CBS All Access, and I have been making my way through Star Trek Picard.
To be clear, I did know what that was.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
The listener. It was very apparent that to the listeners that you were hazing me, as you so frequently do. So I what's interesting. This was a completely different approach to a Star Trek series. I'm presuming, I don't know if you have access to CBS All Access or not, but I'm presuming you have not seen Picard yet, or I don't know what your interest level is.
My interest level is decent. I have not started it. I think it was going to be one of those where because I do love Patrick Stewart, and it's no Virgin Megastore, but I've stood about 2 feet from him.
You sure did.
Because I didn't get to see him, but I am interested and intrigued. I think I was kind of waiting just to see, like, okay, what the general consensus going to be, and if it was
sure.
Modest to strong, I will take an interest and check it out.
Gotcha.
When it's a little more of it is out. So how many is it? What's out?
So there's going to be 10
what are
episodes.
The deets, Reed? What are the deets? Tell me.
There's going to be 10 episodes. It's already been renewed for a season 2, and basically it's the series picks up about 20 years after the final film. You and I saw Star Trek Nemesis together. I was surprised to discover.
Lives in infamy.
It does, but I was surprised to discover in the first maybe 15 minutes of the first episode, it heavily references the events of Nemesis. But what's interesting is it heavily references the events of Nemesis, but also clearly takes place in the J.J. Abrams iteration of Star Trek universe. So it's this fascinating little line that it's walking. So presumably,
right. Remind me, as brief as you can, how does that work? Because it's been a while since I've watched the Abrams Treks, but I have seen all of them.
So
I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Well, no. I mean, I'm just saying. So they don't heavily reference like the events of the 3 Abrams movies, but there is one major thing that they reveal happened in the first episode that, to my, if I'm understanding it correctly, only took place in J.J. Abrams' world. Now, what might be the case, and perhaps larger fans of Star Trek than I am may correct me on this, what might be the case is that these events did take place in J.J. Abrams' world, but Star Trek Picard merely presumes that they also took place in the core timeline just later on from
That's way too much
previous
to think
events.
about.
Right, exactly. So the baseline, and this is not too big of a spoiler to say this, the baseline is that the events of Nemesis took place, but in this world, Romulus was destroyed, which is the main tether connection to J.J. Abrams' films. But I say it was his films. He only directed the first 2, and then the third one was directed by the director of Fast and the Furious, but his name is not coming to me. I think Justin Lin might be his
Vin
name.
Diesel? Oh.
No. So anyway, I don't want this to go on forever. So anyway,
Too late.
The premise of this is that basically what happened was Romulus was destroyed, and in that effort, Starfleet was reached out to kind of save Romulan refugees. And they made an active decision through some admittedly complicated factors. They made an active decision to not take in these refugees, and many, many Romulans died. Picard was an advocate for assisting those people, and he broke with Starfleet. He was a highly decorated admiral in Starfleet, and he basically sort of left Starfleet as a result of these. So where we find him is living out his retirement in his vineyard. I don't want to go into too many more details of it in case people are trying to avoid spoilers, but the story picks up from there, and he is basically forced into an adventure on the horizon. But the biggest connection to Nemesis, spoiler alert for the end of Star Trek Nemesis, which is, as much as I love Star Trek, not a film that is much worth your time, but Lieutenant Commander Data dies at the end of Star Trek Nemesis. And the premise of this series is heavily dependent upon Data's death. So that's why it and how it directly ties to the events there. What's interesting to me about it, before I close down my thoughts on it, is that Star Trek has always been primarily episodic, with a problem being introduced in an episode that is by and large resolved by the end of the episode. Maybe larger arcs over time, particularly in the Deep Space Nine series, but for the most part, the episode resolves the tension. This is specifically serialized. You could not jump in. You could conceivably jump into season 4 of Star Trek Next Generation. You'll be able to follow what's going on. There might be larger beats that you don't know, but the episode will be
self-contained.
Encapsulated. Yes, self-contained. This is not a series that you could jump in on episode 4 and be able to follow the path of what's happening. It's definitely long-form storytelling. I've been delighted by the cameos that have taken place already, many of which were teased in the previews. But so I'm really digging it so far.
Marina Sirtis.
Yes, and of course Jonathan Frakes.
Right.
And,
I just want some praise that I knew Marina Sirtis' name.
You know what? Yes. Congratulations. You do.
Thank you.
Yeah, Marina Sirtis. You know, I met her. You know,
I know. When you went to Vegas to see Cher.
Correct. Yes, I met.
You
LeVar
went across
Burton.
the street to the Trekkie-Con.
I sure did. I met
like Shaka
Brent
Khan
Spiner there. Yeah, I met John Delancey. I met Denise Crosby. I met all these people. So yeah.
You know, Reed, your
time.
franchise is just, the aliens of it are just 90% humans with pointy ears. You know.
You know what? Them's fighting words.
I can't back that up. I'm just quoting somebody else.
So, but to leave Starfleet behind. Yes, Star Trek Picard. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it so far. 4 episodes in, it's very different, but it's a really exciting series, and I'm excited to see where they go with it. So, yep, that's what I've been watching.
Well, cool.
Is
it my turn now?
Yeah.
It was a lot of
what have you been
Trek
watching?
talk. I kind of zoned out.
Did I tell you about the time that I sat
I got beamed
with
up.
Walter Koenig? And did I tell you about the time?
You did.
Will
You did.
asked me
Not
for autograph.
Not too long ago, in fact.
It was.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like it's
I
second
actually
half of last year. Oh my God.
I met Uhura as well at a concert. She was so sweet. She thanked me.
You met her at a concert. Like y'all just ran into each other.
Yes, she was at a Star Trek themed concert, and
Oh my gosh.
I boldly
Oh my
walked
gosh.
up and spoke.
You
to her,
boldly
and
went.
I boldly went.
Where-
There were many people were going, but
Okay.
but like lots of people shaking her hand. And
Oh my
everything.
gosh.
She-
Were
she
you
told me
dressed
good
were
luck
you
with my
dressed up
writing.
though?
It was great. No, I was not dressed up. But
You went to a Star Trek themed concert and did not kind of doll yourself up? You didn't cosplay as Wesley Crusher?
well, now I feel like it was a missed opportunity. But
It definitely was not.
all right, moving on.
At minimum, a red shirt. Throw a red shirt on yourself.
Oh, that would have been appropriate. That's my
I
next
know.
Halloween
I
costume.
know. I can speak Trek, sort of.
Okay.
So, do you want heavy or do you want light? You just get
Oh
one.
man, you have either. Oh, if I just have one,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Let's go light this time. around.
Okay.
You've been given a lot of heavy.
Yeah, and the other heavy. This heavy was super heavy.
Okay, so yeah, let's go light this time.
It won't take long. My wife and I are in the very end of season 4 of Schitt's Creek. So yeah,
How
we've been-
are you liking it,
we've been
Nathan?
lucky. We have been trucking along. Here's what's fun about Schitt's Creek is like episode to episode, it's good and quality. Every kind of 30 minutes of runtime, which means not it doesn't happen every single episode.
Sure.
Kind of if you were to just play it, start it, and then keep going every 30 minutes or so, there's a stroke of comedic brilliance that is just laugh out loud, guffaw level funny.
Oh yes.
In a lot of ways, it's a pretty straightforward, kind of sitcom. In a lot of ways, it kind of distinguishes itself from that mold. You and I actually, I don't know that we've really conversed about this, but this is just a random sweeping assessment. But the episode 1 bit with Catherine O'Hara and her video of the vineyard.
Oh my god!
Almost played their card too hard because
and how funny it was.
Yeah, because
Okay,
that bit is maybe one of the top 10 funny things I've seen in the last decade. You like how I just did that? I'm trying for Lackey, listicle Lackey, the occasionally listless list maker.
You know what? You are such an apt student. You're an apt pupil. I love it.
No, but that little bit is hysterical.
It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
And something I just really like about the show is it's now, for as funny as I like to think I am and enjoy comedic interplay, I don't watch a ton of just like sitcoms.
Okay, sure.
So I don't know if this rhythm is uncommon and or unique to Schitt's Creek, but one thing I really like about the show is it's got a very organic flow to it. Like, one episode might be like the day after the previous episode, and it's very rooted in its own kind of timeline and world. I don't know. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're enjoying it. Catherine O'Hara is a queen, and Eugene Levy's facial expressions are to die for.
Man, he's so wonderful. He's so wonderful.
Dan, his son, and the actress Annie, whose last name eludes me at the moment, who plays the daughter. Alexis?
Twyla. Oh no,
no.
sorry.
No.
Yeah. Who plays the daughter?
Yes.
Yeah.
But them as a core troupe are just
they're
fantastic.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
It's real excellent
So,
comedy.
We need to move on, but like an observation. There have been a ton of observations recently about Schitt's Creek, and one of my favorite about them.
Now remember, I haven't finished it.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
But that like so many shows where the rich folk come down to the country bumpkins, like the country bumpkins are viewed as like these ignorant people who are just, ridiculous and absurd, and the rich people are kind of trying to elevate them along the way. But what is remarkable about the approach in Schitt's Creek is that it in a loving and endearing way, it is exactly the opposite. Like they are teaching these people how to the small like sort of country bumpkin dregs of society are teaching the Rose family how to be a family and how to love each other and how to be a part of community. And that's remarkably beautiful and uplifting. And it's all while being pretty hilarious at the same time. So it's wonderful.
Will you tell briefly the story of your attempt to buy an Ew David shirt for your wife?
Sure.
So real quick, I'll
tell that story.
I'll set up. So in the show, the sibling interplay between Alexis and David, her brother, is actually really lovely and sweet. But the actress who plays Alexis, the adult sister, both of them have extremely distinct physicalities to their characters and very, very, the body language and the verbal tics are very pronounced. But Alexis, to her brother, a catchphrase that develops through the course of the show, which is not within the show itself, but meta, is ew, E-W, the word ew, David. Like if something is gross or yucky to her brother, she'll go, ew, David. And so that's the setup for this story.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a wonderful shirt that my wife wanted for Christmas that just says "Ew, David" on the shirt. And so this is not only a story about my adventures trying to acquire that shirt, but it is a wonderful shout out to our merchandise holders, tpublic.com. So be aware, all of you who have done a merch perch, that you have probably received Fear of God merchandise, and we thank you for that. I went to same said place and did a merch perch of a different variety, expecting to receive an Ew David shirt. So I received it, and when I got it, I did not open the package until I went to wrap it. And so it sat there for probably 2 or 3 days. And so then I finally I got to wrap all these presents. So I opened it up, and when I pulled it out, at first I was a little surprised because the shirt was yellow. And I was like, I thought this shirt was pink. And so I pulled it open, and instead of Ew David, it was these bees, like
bumblebees.
Ornithological bumblebees. And these bees were there with little ghost costumes on them,
like Charlie Brown.
So you're picturing this. It's bees with ghost costumes, and under it the words BOOBEES. Yes, that's right. Under it the words boo bees. That was the shirt that arrived. I took one look at that.
I showed my wife that. We laughed and laughed.
Oh my gosh, I panicked. I was sitting there, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And the first thought that went through my mind is, man, I done screwed up. I ordered the complete, I pushed the wrong button. Like, how in the world did this happen? So I went back and I pulled up the order that you get a confirmation email from, and no, I had ordered the Schitt's Creek Ew David shirt. So thankfully this all ends in a big shout out to our merch perch holders, tpublic.com, because they immediately rapidly went into action of trying to take care and replace the shirt, which they did, and the new shirt was wonderful. But yes, that was my mishap trying to order.
They took back your boobies and gave you the shit you were after all along.
They didn't even require it back. I got both shirts.
Oh. What a great punchline to that
story. I was able to keep both shirts. So, my wife got one and I got one. So that's how that story goes.
What you watching? What you buying? You better check. What you listening to? Wow. That's hysterical.
Gosh.
That's hysterical.
No.
So Reed,
Ready or not.
today we are talking about 2019's listener voted a best of selection, and that of the Samara Weaving starring Ready or Not. Now, I asked you 10 minutes ago now about games. So
yes,
when I was in high school, I had a brief moment in time where I just mentioned on Star Wars about the Star Wars collectible card game. Well, I can't remember if the Star Wars game preceded this era or after it. I don't know. But I did play Magic the Gathering for a brief moment in time. Do You know what Magic
Oh,
the
I know.
Gathering is? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I never like in transparency, I never played that one. So like I played D&D
Well,
in high school,
'cause
but
you-
I never.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I was about to make a comment about your upbringing, and so you just.
But no,
wrecked-
it was all in secret.
You were even worse
like, I
than
never,
me. You had D&D.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it was all in secret. I was only ever able to play like at school on like lunch break and stuff like that. But no, I played a little D&D when I was in high school, but no, never got into Magic the Gathering.
Well, little fun anecdote here, peek behind the curtain. So I had a good buddy in high school whose parents were of the Pentecostal fundamentalist variety.
Oh, I know those.
Yeah, I know you do. As I was saying it, I was like, huh, it's not Reed, though. And
Easily could have been.
yeah. So him and myself and a couple other guys started playing Magic. This is maybe for like, I don't know, 6 months, one particular year of high school, if
Okay.
that long. And one son and his parents hated the fact that we were playing Magic the Gathering.
Sure.
And one Sunday afternoon, we're hanging out at his house at his dining room table, and there's 4 of us, on one on each side of the table playing Magic the Gathering. And this buddy of mine loved to needle his parents. Like it was a very dysfunctional home.
Oh,
And
that's a shame.
well, except that it yields fun stories like this. So
For the sake of comedy, it's fine.
so much qualifies there. Hey, Reed, tell that dumb, embarrassing story for all the people.
remember when I kicked your ass at wrestling? I remember that.
Boobies. So anyway, one Sunday afternoon, we're playing Magic the Gathering, and my buddy calls his like I know your parents, and your parents at least generally have their faculties together in their social comings and goings.
Yes.
Now his didn't quite qualify there, and we're sitting around the table, and he yells, "Hey mom, come look at this." Again, just totally needling her on the fact that we were playing Magic the Gathering, the Devil's game.
Oh boy, yeah.
She comes in, and I don't even remember how premeditated this was. He's like, "Watch this," and he starts waving his hands over the table, like, "Ooh!"
Oh no!
And those
Oh,
of
no.
us under the table start lifting it up and moving it around.
No.
And she just goes, "That's not funny," and storms out of the room.
Oh my gosh! It
Yeah.
just starts lifting up.
Yeah.
You're-
It was levitating. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Good time. So yes, we are
Oh,
talking
fun,
today
good times.
about the gaming infused and board game inspired Ready or Not. Here's another
Ready
really
or
here's
Not.
another really funny story. We're going to get to this movie. But when I went to this movie, I went to see this movie with my nephew, whom I can shout out, Drew, and his girlfriend Ashley. And this is one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life, Reed. To quote Mike Wazowski, in my life. So we go to the movies. We're running late. My gas light is on. We get there. I don't like running late for the movies. You know this. Like I am like,
Oh
no. Previews.
I'm aware.
Got to get my seat. All that stuff. And we hop out. And as we're walking away, I hear what sounds like a car beep that sounds eerily like mine, like familiar, but it registers subconsciously.
Okay, yeah.
So we go in, we watch the movie, we come back out. Read. We're approaching the car, and I'm trying to use my little fob to turn off the car. Or to
Okay.
to unlock the car.
To
and it's
unlock
not,
it, right.
And it's not clicking. I'm seeing it.
Okay.
The closer I get to the car, I realize I had put the car in park and left it on.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
It was running the
Yes.
whole time?
Yes.
No.
Unlocked with no
That-
gas, with like on fumes.
And
Yes.
what?
Yeah.
That
What? No. It's like, Forky asked a question.
30 minutes later, I'm still really
What? Yeah. No,
What?
really. It was
No.
that. Yes.
That's no. Oh my gosh. Speaking of fumes, you've got listeners don't
Forky.
see that one of your
Waving my
companions
Forky. Right.
is yes, one of your companions is Forky from Toy Story 4
Yeah.
on your
So
your
yeah,
table there.
that happened when I went to go see Ready or Not, and let's finally talk
dive
about
in.
this film.
Let's dive in. Yes, let's dive in. So I missed this in the theaters to my dismay. My theater viewing is limited these days, which is really distressing. It's a combination of work and lack of babysitters and all this, and just a general availability and whatever. But so yeah, I missed this in the theater, but had seen the rave reviews for it. Strongly considered for, man, it is very tempting for highly acclaimed, particularly horror films, when Vudu, the digital service, has a tendency to, about 2 to 3 weeks before they are released to, say, Redbox or to, purchase on DVD or whatever, Vudu will have them on early access digitally. They're not the only service that does that. I think iTunes sometimes has some, early access release. It is now becoming more and more common practice for a film to be released digitally earlier than the physical copy of it is released. And Ready or Not was almost one. I didn't ultimately wind up doing it, but it was almost one that I picked up on a blind buy early because I was so anxious to see it. But I held out and I waited until it was rentable, and then I just watched it at home. But man, this was a delightful film. I thought this film was fantastic.
Great. And it is
so great. It's
hysterical. Like,
it really is.
I did see it in the theater. As mentioned, in my car should have gotten stolen. I was so stupid.
Amazing.
And then rewatching it for this conversation, I was just once more struck. Like, the script is so good, which is one thing, but we should take 5 minutes here. Samara Weaving's amazing. She's amazing. Like, her,
man,
not only is she just a beautiful human and just kind of lights up the screen when she's on it, and they costuming knocked it out of the park with her
wedding dress
look the whole time.
But
also just her daggone comic delivery is pitch perfect.
She's wonderful. She's absolutely wonderful. I've been on
I thought you were about to be like, I met her at the...
No, not yet. Give it time. But
the Ready or Not con.
Just picture now. There's
also called the Ron Con.
My name's Ron. I should go to the Ron Con.
Oh my
God. No. So basically, I've been on the Samara Weaving train since she was just the Australian girl that never wanted to go on a hike in the first place from Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Right.
That's the first place that I remember seeing her and remember thinking like, oh man, she's pretty great. But then I later saw her in the Netflix original called The Babysitter, which is really funny. It was funny to me. On Letterboxd, I had watched The Babysitter. I liked it. I had told a couple of people about it. I was like, you know what? This is not like the greatest movie ever, but it's a lot of fun, and I think you'd really enjoy it, and you should check it out. Samara Weaving's great in it. And what was funny is a lot of people just sort of, as they do, gave me like this passing little, oh, thanks, Reed, oh, yeah, whatever, and then never like go watch the movies that I recommend.
That sounds right.
It is. And so, but after Ready or Not, Letterboxd has this thing where it's like, oh, here's the popular movie that everybody's watching. And sure enough, like after Ready or Not came out, I suddenly started seeing lots and lots of people go check out The Babysitter because Samara Weaving is so fantastic in Ready or Not. They were like, what else has she done? So yeah, I feel a bit like I was on this Samara Weaving train like for a long time, but now you all just
and Letterboxd was like, don't tell Reed The Babysitter's good.
Do
you like that?
That was great.
You like that?
Reed The Babysitter's good. But
you
see,
like
I'm
that?
the one telling. I do. I loved it.
Well, I know. I was making a don't tell mom the babysitter's dead joke.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
I got it.
You acted real saying, like, pondering.
Just in the thing, I'm the one telling Letterboxd that the babysitter's good.
It was in the moment, man. I had to work on lackey listicle, the occasionally listless list maker.
I have such a knack for deflating a joke. Like it's I'm really good at it.
You really do.
I'm really good at it. Like instead of just Nathan hears something funny and he just laughs uproariously to everyone's delight and amusement. I hear something funny and I'm like, well, really that punchline doesn't work.
You overthink.
You overthink. It's like, wait a minute, that punchline's not effective because it didn't.
Know. There could have been more Picard in that one.
Oh man!
But no, she's amazing, and
She's wonderful.
I mean, and this can pivot into the specificity of the film, likes, dislikes, but like, I love the sort of convention early in the film of her talking to herself.
Yes.
And what I wrote down as part of my notes, representative of the commentary of how strong I think she is here, is that great exchange in the hallway between the dad, Mr. Ladomas, and her, and she says, "How do I win?" or something like that, and he's like,
"Oh yeah.
Well, you could hide till dawn." And there's this long pause, and she's got this great big smile, and she just goes, "No, thank you." And it's just really, I don't know, man. The way, the timing, the inflection, it's hysterical. It makes me laugh.
She's just so dang watchable, and one of my favorite things that she did was like when it's the little affectations, because she hears the premise, which, by the way, we should probably in a second sort of summarize the basic premise of the film, but she hears the premise of her evening, of her wedding night, and then she's like, I'm going to go put on my game face. Yeah. And she does this weird hand thing. And but the best part about it is like she does this weird hand face, and she's like, I'm going to put on my game face. But as she's walking away, she does this little side shuffle as she's walking. Like, it's just there's so much about her that is just eminently endearing. She's a real delight. It's going to be amazing to see where she goes from here, because I think the world's her oyster.
Well, and
she's great.
This is a real showcase for her. I mean,
it is. Oh, absolutely.
And I didn't look at box office numbers or anything, but I know just in terms of pure reputation, the film did really well.
It was very successful. Yeah. Oh, it absolutely did. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me either, but I know it was a bona fide success. So something that's right near the top of my list is just, as a segue, is just the premise itself. So the premise, in brief, is this woman, Samara Weaving, is getting married, and the movie kind of opens with a prelude where you see all these people in masks, and they're hunting this man, and the man begs of this little child, please help me, they're trying to kill me, and the child just screams out, he's in here, he's in here, he's in here. And so they take this man away. Flash forward 30 years later, and Samara Weaving is getting married to, her fiance, and on their wedding night, they had to get married on the grounds of his in-laws, or his family, her in-laws. And on their wedding night, right before they are about to consummate the marriage, he's like, whoa, wait. And he's like, we need to go and we have to play a game. And she's like, what are you talking about? And her family, I guess it's a tradition in their family, you learn that every new family member that joins, they have to play this game. But the game is selected. I'm not going to summarize the entire history, but they are this deeply entrenched rich people who are funded by a is he there, is he not there spectral entity that presumably you put a blank playing card into this magical box, and the magical box will tell you what game you're supposed to play. And if you happen to draw the card that says hide and seek, then the version of hide and seek they play is where the new family member has to hide before they find them and ritually sacrifice them. So it's pretty alarming.
It's a barrel of laughs.
But one of the things that I remembered watching it the second time, and I felt this way the first time, but watching it that first time when they put on that jaunty record.
Yes,
it's like,
that's great.
I want to play a game. Hide and seek.
Keep going.
And no, thank you.
Sing the whole thing.
No, thank you. So,
now see, you did good there.
Thank you. So maybe funny one day. So so basically, when she's running and she's trying to hide while that jaunty music is playing, as each of the other family members are passing out weapons, I remember just being so energized. This is an exciting premise for a film. It's just a great idea for a movie, and it's a lot of fun. It's just that's a great inciting moment, but the whole thing is really fun.
Well, and as a random trivial bit insertion here, you just mentioned the weapons. I did not know this was called this, but the pepper box revolver that Emily has been the version of the gun, the weapon used in the North American edition of the board game Clue since 1972.
That's nice. I did stumble across that bit. That is really, really delightful.
That is fun.
Did you ever play Clue? I like Clue.
Yeah, we actually we've got Harry Potter Clue, and we play that every now and then.
Ooh, I would love to play that. That's a remarkable game. So one of the things that is interesting, because in this film, the other family members that have come to join play old maid, chess, whatever. But Samara Weaving's character draws the dreaded her name is Grace. I need to start referring to her as Grace. Draws the dreaded hide and seek card. And when she draws it, I read something that there's a theory that she is chosen to be like ritually sacrificed rather than join the family for one of two reasons. Did you stumble across this bit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first is, for listeners, because Nathan already knows it. The first reason is that because
I could have just lied. I don't.
Yeah,
try not to do that.
No, that's a fair point. So she was possibly rejected and chosen to be sacrificed because her heart really was like harder to turn into this rich, methodical killing machine that she actually was marrying for love rather than just to get the Ladoma's fortune. That's one theory. The other theory is that she was basically selected for that fate because her fiance, the son Alex, was trying to break away from the family, and so this was the way to sort of entrench him back into the family.
Is Daniel the?
Daniel's
the brother.
The brother, yeah.
Okay.
So Alex and Grace are getting married, and Daniel is the brother.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I found that really interesting. That like that's why she's chosen for this, is that she's not in it for the Ladoma's fortune, but she's in it just actually because she's trying to get married because she's in love, and I found that really interesting.
Put a pin there.
Okay.
I think one of my only dislikes about this movie is I mentioned the costume design for her earlier. And, she starts in this really lovely wedding dress, and then the action ratchets up, and she tears the bottom trim off the dress and is in her kind of Chuck Taylors. And there's a real Ellen Ripley style moment in the film where she puts on the gosh, I don't even know what you call the bullet holder thingy, the Chewbacca.
Yeah, it's
sleeve.
probably got a proper name, but just like the bullet sleeve.
Yeah, and the shotgun. My only dislike is I wish she'd kind of been in that mode a little longer. You know what I mean? Because that gets dispensed with pretty quick. Because immediately after that is the kitchen scene. And again, I love so much about the film. That's just a tiny little thing, but I think that imagery is so strong, and it's what's sold on the marketing,
Yeah. Absolutely.
That would have been cool to see that a little longer. Go ahead.
So, not disagreeing with you about that would have been cool for that to have been extended, but actually, I appreciated one of my frustrations, and, stay tuned, everybody, for 2020. We might finally get to a little film called 28 Days Later, but one of my frustrations with films is when they take a character that you have already established has no, combat experience, has no, navigating tricky, treacherous situations experience, and then suddenly they're freaking Rambo. They just know all the places to hide and they know all the things to do. One of the things I absolutely love about this film is that throughout, everything that she does, to me, feels very believable.
Sure.
It feels like these are things that a person of this station and skill set would do and would be able to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I really loved about it, is that they don't, but I'm not disagreeing with you. That image is really awesome. And it's great. She catches herself in the mirror and just what? But That's not the word
What?
she
No.
uses. No. But I do. But again, just as a sort of an applause to the film, I appreciated that even though yes, mayhem ensues and the hide and seek game extends throughout the evening, the things that are happening are things that I easily believe could happen to a character like this.
Yeah.
And that she would easily be able to navigate that.
And I can totally get behind that, and I think that works. I think I like that thing you're describing, and we even brought it up more in a film like Strangers, which is very gritty and real world.
Yes.
Whereas something like this, that's a little more heightened, a little more fantastical.
Right.
You know, you can feed that trope a little more. But we are both correct, Reed. We're both correct.
we're both right. We're both right.
I love Emily. I think she's hysterical.
Emily's amazing. I didn't know until seeing this film because I've never watched the show. I guess she's the lead in a show called Winona Earp. But this was the first thing I had ever seen her in. She's fantastic in this. She's hysterical. She is so funny. Oh my gosh, they all like aim for the center of gravity, and she just cries like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I love when
so funny.
Aunt Helene sees her and brown-haired niece, you continue to exist. It's great.
That little half giggle that she does after that, like,
oh yeah.
So
I mean,
great.
yes.
Oh man, she's wonderful.
She might be the next level down standout to Samara Weaving.
She is for me. I really love her in this film. She's great. I think it can't be, you can't bring up Emily without mentioning the hysterical way in which she keeps offing members of the staff.
That's great.
It's great because she shoots the one, and that's sort of more of a shocking moment than it is a comical one. But then when she's messing around with the crowbar or the crossbow, she takes out another one. And my favorite part about that whole sequence after she takes it out with the crossbow is that then Aunt Helene keeps trying to be like, it must be the bride, and then like the gurgling.
Oh, it's awful. That's awful.
The corner.
Well, the film knows when. I think something the film does well is it straddles the line of comedy and absurdity.
Sure.
I would have to talk this through a little bit more. My knee-jerk thought is I don't know that the film goes into absurdity. I think it knows how to play with the toys it's put out without it just getting stupid. But
sure.
Moments like that stand out to me. It's like, it's funny. It hangs there just long enough for you to be aware of it and register. I think the butler singing in the kitchen is a really great beat. A really great moment.
That's really cool. And then I love the way that Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture sort of follows that butler around, paying off in a really great way in the car crash scene. I love that whole, which the car crash setup is fantastic because the family is watching, but he's turned his music so loud, he can't see that she's awakened at the back. So a passing comment about that, I'm not intending to be like super silly, but it was a little weird to me that when Daniel smacked her in the face with the butt of the gun, that knocked her out for longer than the tranquilizer dart did. That struck me as odd. The tranquilizer dart knocks her out.
I can't remember.
And
that
then
part.
So the tranquilizer dart is how the butler got her to pass out when she's in the car. But presumably she's in the back seat for maybe 5 minutes and comes to. But boy, you take a gun butt to the face and you're out for an hour.
This is
that's bad.
You're just overthinking it, Riri.
You
just go with it.
I don't know that I'm overthinking it as so much as I'm just thinking it. And
well,
maybe
in a movie like this, you're overthinking a little bit. You're like, no.
Now, come on.
Last time I got hit in the face with a gun butt, I was out for a solid 25 minutes. But that tranquilizer dart put me low for an hour.
Well, when you say it that way, I hear it. So yeah, I think you're right. When you say, I hear it now. So I'm gonna
I just have this I just have this mental image of you with your love of horror, testing out things on yourself to see how they would work out in a real world way.
Wonder what happens if I was chained at the bottom of a lake and couldn't saw my own leg off. I wonder what would happen. I wonder what would happen if I had a nightmarish boiler room hellscape. I wonder what happened. Oh my gosh.
It's a grand old game at the Lackey House.
Oh my gosh.
I wonder what would happen.
So a couple more things that I found really, really funny.
Tell me.
I love that he I'm going to censor myself, but I love that the man Googles pacts with the
That's
devil.
great.
Are they real or are they bullshit? I mean, like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, that was so funny.
I feel like they do a good job by pretty much every character. Now, some stand out more than others, but by pretty much every character giving them some real solid beats.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, did you catch that when he's watching the video of how to work your crossbow? That's the writers.
I did.
Yeah.
I heard that. Yes, I found that in the trivia. Didn't know it obviously until the end, but yeah, I found that out in the trivia. I have a couple more here, but I want to make sure don't steal all of yours possibly. But
I'm good.
Grace's freak out when the car doesn't pick her up is fantastic. We've already sang Samara Weaving's praise, but like when she freaks out because the car stops for a second as she's struggled painfully to get through the bar gates in time,
oh, that's
scratching
terrible.
up her
Yeah.
back.
Ugh.
And then the car stops long enough to just tell her, "Get out of the road."
Yeah.
And then she has this meltdown that is just deliriously glorious. It's hysterical.
This could be represented in Scares, but I'll throw it in here as we just continue to sing the praises of her performance capability. Last week on Midsommar, Meredith specifically referenced Florence Pugh's performance in the wailing scene at the top of Midsommar. Well,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be able to be so strong comedically, and then Samara Weaving's shrieks at the end are otherworldly.
Yes.
I mean, that's
and what's
unsettling.
Funny is there's a warble to them. Like there's like a I couldn't even replicate
Try
it if
it.
I tried. No, I'm not going to try.
I wonder how it would sound if I
wonder what happened if
I just sound like a giant turkey.
I wonder what happens if I make an idiot of myself.
Yep. Did it.
There.
Nailed
there
it.
It was. Man said nailed it. I wonder what happens if I try to make an idiot of myself. The man said nailed it. No. Oh no. Oh no.
Ooh.
Oh man. So okay, yeah. So I can't replicate it, but she has this great like vibrato scream that is, it's really amazing. It's really fantastic. Okay, so before we get to Scares, maybe this will be did you have anything more in likes, dislikes?
Mm-mm.
Before we get into Scares, this could probably bridge those two things, but on my list, what's my moniker again? Who am
You are Lackey Listicle, the occasionally listless list-making lackey.
These are my adventures. So
yes.
So in that role, on my list of like favorite spontaneous moments in any film at all for the last 10 to 20 years or whatever is when the family begins one by one bursting into pieces.
That's wild.
Like, because so listeners who haven't seen the film, you definitely should see it, but this is a big spoiler to the end, is the reason that they are hunting her is that the conceit of the film is that if they do not catch her and sacrifice her to straight up to Satan, by the way, but if they do not sacrifice her, then they will die. That's all we know, is that they will die. And there is some debate through the course of the film about whether or not this is real or just some made-up tradition. And so then when dawn comes, they're trying desperately to be like, oh no, and then there's a moment where they're all like, oh, okay, so it was all just garbage. This is not really happening. We're not going to really die. And then one by one, they start spontaneously combusting. It is just one of the most gleefully horrific surprises I have seen in any film, and it was a pitch perfect way to end this story. It was It was amazing. I loved.
Well, and culminating in the trio of Emily and the two boys when they run out of the door, and then just this trifecta of bursts happens. It's disgusting.
Oh my Lord! And then when she says like I want a divorce and throws the ring at him and he like explodes on impact, it's it's great. It's absolutely great. What you got for scares?
So I wrote down a list of the kills since we're liking lists.
Ooh.
And I wondered if we'd do a quick rundown. So you just mentioned the explosions of what I called hell goo. You've got Mom, her head gets bashed in and by the box, right?
Yeah.
You got
and one of the more brutal deaths, yeah.
You've got Daniel gets shot in the neck. That's rough.
Kind of sucks that he gets taken out because he eventually sort of does the right thing, and so it kind of.
Well, he gets taken out there. He's going to get taken out by the hell goo, you know.
Either that or he's just gonna explode.
You got Stevens who dies in the car wreck, presumably, right?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Now
he's never seen again.
It's not a kill. It's not a kill because that happens later. But Georgie, Grace punches that kid out.
Oh man, that's such a great scene. No, that's such a great scene. Like, cause he shoots her. She's trying to like level with him or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he shoots her in the hand, and so she just walks up and just clobbers the kid, just like straight up punches him. That was great.
Yeah. And then the maids shot in the face by Emily, crossbowed in the mouth by Emily, crushed by the dumbwaiter. That was rough.
Yes.
Speaking of red shirts.
Parade. Yeah, the parade of just hired help. So, on my scares list, Grace falling into the hole and finding all the dead bodies is pretty awful. But, surprisingly, her journey out of it is far, far worse.
Yeah.
It is awful. I had read a piece of trivia that said that because there's one point, so she's been shot in the hand, creating this big hole in her hand. When she's climbing up, she is not visibly aware that there is a sort of rusty nail sticking up on the place where she's trying to gain purchase with her hands, and so she lifts up, and when she lifts up, the hand that has been wounded smashes right down on that nail, which was CG. Like, the nail going up through was a computer-generated effect. They were worried it would look really dumb until they saw how Samara Weaving sold it with her acting, and they were like, "No, this is fine. This is great." Again, wonderful praises to her.
That ain't right.
That ain't right. That ain't right.
You know what else ain't right is your boy putting hydrochloric acid in the wine.
Right?
No,
oh my gosh.
Not right. Ain't right.
That ain't right. That ain't right.
That ain't
yeah,
right. That's so gross.
It was great though because like they're just about to do her in, and then it all comes crashing down because he poisoned the wine. I love that he's like, no, I googled it. They're gonna poop funny. For like a couple weeks, but then they'll be fine. Or a couple days and they'll be fine. I loved this. Go ahead.
No, all I was gonna say is that it's already been referenced, but the self-inflicted gate wound is awful. That's gross.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. And it's all just because she's trying to get out. She can kind of squeeze through, but there's a sharp, I don't know what you would call those decorative sort of little hooks that they have on it, but there's a sharp little hook that's pointing up. She has to squeeze through, and there's like just enough space for her to squeeze through, but that hook is cutting into her skin like maybe half an inch, and so she's got to endure the pain to squeeze past it, and it is a rough scene to watch. I both love, and I'm listing it in scares for a very specific reason. I love when, like, quote unquote, Justin shuts down the car because it's been reported as stolen.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm citing that as scares is because it's a really tense moment. All of a sudden it like shuts down.
Yeah.
And so she's locked in this car completely in the woods. Like, she knows they're hunting for her. It's a pretty suspenseful moment, but yeah, that's a great moment.
Siri wouldn't have done that.
No, Siri's far kinder to us than that. The last thing I wrote in my scares, wasn't even that scared of it, but I was just like, wow, so they really are Satanists. So that's like,
I mean, that's
like
kind of
straight
intense when that happens. Yeah, like,
straight up, like
I was enjoying laughing.
But now this is gone really dark.
Unsettled. Yeah.
It's super dark, bro.
I think my last scare here that actually has echoes into theme is just Alex turning on her is real rough.
That's hard to watch, and so everything about that in a film that is mostly comic and macabrely funny. Macabre's not a word. But
I didn't know what just happened there. I thought you just sneezed or like just burped. Macabre.
But no, it's
it's like a
it's
dessert.
Actually a new,
it's like a dessert.
Yeah, it's a new Starbucks drink.
What do you have?
Do you want a chocolate peppermint macabre?
It is. It's the kind of thing we'd make up to sell ourselves overpriced treats.
It is true.
Y'all.
It's shaped like a little pumpkin.
You tried the macabre yet? They have sold out. You can't get any more.
Okay, moving on. But the film is mostly funny, even in bleak ways. But when she bludgeons the mom with the box, and then right after that is when Alex finds her, culminating in Alex, turning on her and turning her into the family to be sacrificed. That whole thing, it just all gets really heavy very, very quickly. It doesn't linger there for much longer before it comes back up into the sort of absurdly, dark comic kind of feel. But that part is arguably the heaviest sort of scene in the film. It is a little rough to watch.
Do you want to play the game?
Let's do it. What you got for me?
I mean, admittedly, it's just kind of scant thoughts without the traditional monologue I tend to attach to these things. So maybe it'll yield, 20 minutes of conversation. Maybe it'll be a short 5 and we're out.
All right. Buckle up, everybody. Either way, ready or not.
So I do think it's interesting, and I'm at the same moment propping up conversation and praising what we're trying to do this year in terms of 2020 and looking at the things that scare us represented by signature horror films of a given year. Well,
yeah.
Like Joker, like Parasite, I mean, Ready or Not is a class film.
Yeah,
it is.
It really is. Mm-hmm.
And, there's at least 2 lines in the film. I wrote, Daniel at one point says the rich really are different, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then when the car leaves her, the driver of the car leaves her in the middle of the street, she's kind of bellows rich people.
Yes.
And I don't have a ton of profundity to offer here other than just we use these films as a lens into the real. And you have, at least in this case, a 1% level family who exercise power over those not in their socioeconomic strata and whose own status is, by the end of the film, literally, but is shored up by, for better or worse, powers and principalities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's fascinating to me that even in the end of the film, Grace, metaphorically by name and literally by character, gets traded for power by one who claims to love her.
Yes, absolutely.
And I just think how often we see that play out. It's that transactional zeitgeist we were talking about on Parasite, right? Like, I'm gonna barter, trade, sell, buy this thing, and in so doing assign it a particular value, and in a lot of cases this thing is a person or persons.
Right.
And kind of what that means for us. Go ahead.
So something that the film doesn't define very clearly, and you could call this a ding on the film, but it just doesn't take the time to define it very clearly, is this ritual, this sacrifice ritual is supposed to happen every single time somebody new joins the family, but presumably it also takes place it recurs. I don't know if I was listening this time around, and if you caught this, then illuminate me. I don't know if this ritual takes place like yearly or periodically or whatever, but they sacrifice goats when they don't have a person to sacrifice. They sacrifice goats. And I don't remember, even in 2 viewings, the film specifying the regularity with which they would do that. But it did specifically call out that they do that on occasion. And the patriarch of the family says to Grace at one point, after she has been very successful in eluding them and in abandoning the ritual, he says to her, "Who do you think you are? You're just another goat." And this family's money, to your point, this family's money and power and wealth and status is dependent upon someone else's expense. It's dependent upon these ritualistic things. You mentioned that in the film, literally, although I'm fairly confident the filmmakers, they may or may not have a sort of a faith perspective, but I don't think the film is specifically after a version of faith perspective. But this family is literally propped up by a spectral entity. Like, all through the film, they tease the fact that, like, nobody's ever seen this Mr. LaBelle, who supposedly gave them their fortune. Nobody's ever seen him in the real, except for Alex when he was a little kid. Well, Grace, after the whole family has exploded, Grace eventually sees him.
Yeah.
Like, the fire bursts, and he's sitting there, and she does this little, like, wow, all right then. Like, okay then. And so I do think it's fascinating to me the way the film indicts their acquisition of wealth. I forget who said it and in what context, but there has been probably several quotes at this point about how the problem with being wealthy is that you spend all this time acquiring it, and then you're afraid somebody's going to take it. Somebody's going to take it away from you, or that it's all going to come tumbling down. And I do find it fascinating the way this film sort of plays around with the ways they are desperate to the point that they will literally commit murder. They are desperate to maintain their status, maintain their wealth, maintain their legacy. And I do feel like you could view it in a very reductive way to say, oh, it's just consumerism, or it's capitalism, or it's just the wealthy elite versus the poorer, middle, or lower class. I do think that those would be valid, if a bit reductive, viewings of the film. But I think it's scratching at something more in our general materialism, our general obsession with this is what I have, and it doesn't matter that it requires the diminishment and destruction of other people for me to maintain it. This is mine.
Right.
And I am therefore, I have come to hate this word and for how it is thrown around too glibly, but I am entitled to this thing. And so I will do whatever is necessary, even at the expense of my own soul, to continue to maintain it. And that is... that's a remarkably chilling sort of prospect and examination in an otherwise rather jaunty little film.
You've used that word a bunch. It's a good word. Jaunty.
I love it. That was the first word that came to mind when I heard the little, I want to play a game. Run, run, run. Time to run and hide. Run, run, run.
I wish copyright law would let us be able to not prohibit us from being able to use that as our outro. You just have to hum it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm tempted deeply to take this political and present and current. I mean, I don't totally know the value of that in the moment, other than to simply say stuff like this is not meant, I think. Even if it is meant by authorship, we are, as folks meant to discern and meant to find value and make meaning, there are applications here that are valuable and useful. Did you end up seeing Knives Out?
I haven't yet.
one,
it will
you
will soon be.
Definitively, you should, but there's not the supernatural aspects, but there's some interesting parallels and echoes of story that happen. But I don't know. I just think when you scratch beneath the surface and put on the table the conversation of temptation to materialism, desire to not just hold all the things, but to continue to gain all the things, and what that gain causes in terms of human debris on your way towards acquisition is a very present conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and there's so much tied into it, and we don't have to linger long here, but there's so much tied into it about inferiority and superiority, like, the mom, Becky, who throughout the film once or twice has expressed, like, I like you, and she even tells Alex, she's like, I like her, I don't want to do this, but we have to do this. And it was something that hasn't been brought up yet, is that Grace was a foster kid. She was bounced around, and she wants a real family. And it came in towards the last, before Grace beats her to death with the game box. Becky says, "You don't deserve a family." And it's really remarkable the ways in which our own, and I think this would apply at any level. It is possible, sitting in whatever station you're in, to think more highly of yourself than you are, which is something the scriptures compel us not to do. But to consider that you have, I think part of the danger to these people is they are aware that they have been granted this status by someone else or by something else, but they give themselves too much power in their own mind to maintain it and to continue to prop it up in the ways in which they sacrifice goats and sacrifice people, and they give themselves this superiority complex where they talk from the early on in the film, like, well, is she one of us? Is she, there's an automatic sort of elitism. There's an automatic sort of upper level of like, well, but is she really one of us or not? And that's part of what the trivia that I mentioned earlier, part of what I love about the theories of like why she's rejected. I think if I were to, to sort of embrace one, I think I would want to embrace the fact of like, and here I'm going to go somewhere with this, because I think part of why he rejects this mystical entity that propped up their wealth, this Mr. LaBelle, part of what I love about the ending is, in the end, he does not destroy her. He destroys them and nods to her. So listeners who haven't seen the film, there's a moment where all of the family has spontaneously combusted, leaving Grace blood-soaked, but there, alone, standing in the house. And the fireplace flashes, and when it flashes, she sees a very brief image of this spectral creature, this Mr. LaBelle they keep talking about,
person.
sitting, a person sitting in this chair, and that person nods to her as in what can only be described as an acknowledgement of respect, like nods to her, like
go on with your bad self.
Yeah, like, you got this. And it is remarkable to me the ways in which, like, I would embrace, in the theory of why he makes them play hide and seek, I do think I embrace the whole, like, well, her heart is not like this. She is, pursuing family. She is pursuing affection. She is pursuing love. And so her heart is not captured by all of these other things, and therefore she has a shot at potentially being this family's undoing. Which is, maybe I'm reading I have a tendency to overthink, as we've learned throughout this episode, but, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I found that moment in each of my viewings of this film. I found that moment remarkable, that he explodes the family as per their agreement, but then he didn't have to nod respect to her. He didn't have to, give her all of that acknowledgement and respect. But I think if I were to make a summary statement on it for the sake of us, sort of winding down, is I feel like sometimes the ways in which we can look around and consider our own status, I think we're in danger anytime that we would look at someone else's station and feel better than them. I know that's a really broad statement to sort of assign to this film, but I feel like whenever we would look at someone else's station, because it's not just about money and class, it can also be about, well, I'm more spiritual than they are. Well, I'm smarter than they are. Well, I'm, I'm more moral than they are, or whatever. And I think any time that we would look at someone and devalue them, I think the path towards righteousness, witnessing someone else who is struggling with righteousness, is heartbreaking. And I think that's what you feel. You can feel frustrated or angry or furious, but you can feel a grief of sorts.
Sure.
That they are not along the path that would be more hopeful and helpful. But I think where we should interrogate our own thoughts and mind and hearts are when we would look at a person and be like, well, I'm better than them.
Right.
I've got them beat. I think you're in a real particular peril at that moment of again, the scriptures compel us, do not think more highly of yourselves than you ought to. And I think that's something that in all of these conversations that are going around, you can bring it into politics, you can bring it into religion, you can bring it into whichever arena feels most appropriate or is more relatable to your station. But I think we are in trouble when we prop ourselves up and say we are better than fill in the blank of whatever group, because more likely you didn't get there on your own, and it requires other people's sort of downgrading to sustain that place. Anyway.
Well, and the way you're articulating that to try to make the thing personal for a moment, this is not me patting myself on the back at all. That's not what it's intended to be. It's intended to be sharing with a friend and
sure.
friends who have come to listen to our conversations and how we grow together as we learn together. It's funny. Something that, I don't know, maybe it was a New Year's type of resolution is too concrete a word, but maybe it was a New Year's thing, but I've just been thinking a lot about purpose and intention and, really, I'm going to say these things and I'm not great at doing it, but that, we start at least with the acknowledgement. Injecting purpose as much as I can into my comings and goings, it doesn't even totally mean you change or alter the comings and goings or alter the pattern of life. It's you just infuse intentionality into it. Long-winded way of saying, I've been pondering. So because of my work and because I do a number of kid pickups in a given week, not random children, my own, I'm in the car a lot. I'm in my car a lot, and I get a lot of podcast listening done, which is fun. But I've also just been trying to think how and can I make this kind of purposeful, And it's funny, Reed, I've been trying to, what spawned this was you saying, our capacity to look down on others. Because you and I would look at the Ladomus family and be like, oh, well, we'll never be them.
Right.
Exactly. I mean,
yes,
literally
yes.
In terms of our material wealth, the odds of that happening are astronomically low.
Right, exactly.
And so it creates this distance, and distance means that I can not have to self-examine, right?
Sure, of course.
But it's funny, man. For just random reason that it's not worth going into here, but I have the remnants of a case of bottled water in my car behind my driver's seat. So, it's like I was participating in a social event a little while ago, and at which I left with some water bottles from this case, and they've just stayed in the car. And I'll I'm in the car a lot, so I'll occasionally drink out of these water bottles. And it was funny as I've just been processing, purposefulness as I'm in the car all the time, or purposefulness in whatever realm, but just knowing I'm in the car all the time. There's a lot of, for lack of a better way to put it, homeless intersections in Charlotte. And I kid you not, like, I had just listened to our parasite conversation, and I'm pulling up, and this doesn't happen to me this way that much.
Sure.
Where there's active, like, millisecond to millisecond, warring is the wrong word. That's too strong a word. But, like, just, what do I do? I'm just listening to me and Reed talk about the importance and value of barrier breaking when it comes to socioeconomic boundaries, and faithful living means no one is above or below you. We are all whatever. And I can't look down. Like, I don't anyway, but maybe I do implicitly, and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
And you're just having this, and it's all happening in a split second, right? Like, while you're at this stoplight. And I was like, Nathan, be purposeful. What is something you can do right now? I didn't have any cash on me, and I don't want to undignify a person in this moment. And so I just grabbed one of these water bottles, and I rolled it in the window, and I was like, hey man, here you go. Just, I apologize for not having any cash. And I was like, just, it's unopened. It's for you.
Right.
And
right.
It's stupid. And it sounds like I'm patting myself on the back. I'm not. I'm just illustrating a moment of trying to learn from oneself, trying to exercise faithfulness, trying to, and, I don't have some perfect answer for infusing purposefulness into all that we do, but I think for myself, and I would encourage you, and maybe for our listeners, like, make that an active thing. Like, so few of us will ever be in a position of the Ladomus type of folk,
right?
But there are people a little above us, and there are people a little below us, and like Parasite, there are people way above us and people way below us, and our ability to harmonize in those continuums is part of pursuing faithfulness, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and recognizing that it's not a game. I'm saying this very deliberately for the context of the film. Like, it's not a game where you have to win or lose, or there's some sort of like recipe rule book. Like, you have to pay attention, you have to be mindful, you have to, you have to recognize not every situation. And I would also like encourage you in what you said as we wind this conversation down, and encourage listeners. Like, I say this a lot in so many different contexts, but give yourself room to fail. Like, the efforts at trying, if you stumble into it and don't do it right very frequently, like, if you're trying to sort of be attentive or whatever, and then you stumble through it, it doesn't work out very well the first time, and you're embarrassed, or I didn't get that right. Like, don't stop those efforts to try and just to be mindful, because it's something that we don't always have innate within us. We applaud the people who are better instinctively at it than others, but God, don't despise yourself for needing to learn how to do something like that. I don't know how to do it. I don't know all the best ways to be supportive and mindful and less self-centered. I don't know that. But if you have a framework to try to be more attentive to those around you and less attentive and self-absorbed to yourself, then I think those efforts are worthwhile, and give yourself room to fail in that, because there is tremendous value in the trying.
Well, and just getting raw and real, you can speak into this. I'm feeling some slight self-consciousness of, listening to myself tell the story as a middle-class man, and, oh, look at me for helping out a homeless person. I hope our listeners will have the grace to hear that was not at all the intention of the story. But
no, of course, of course.
Yeah.
No, and no. I'll speak into it for a moment, because I struggle a lot. I had a bit of an incident. I remember one time I was coming out of a video store, and I just happened to have a $5 bill on me. There was a man. I don't know if he was homeless or not. He might have just been somewhat impoverished, but he was out there, and I gave him the $5 bill. He was ecstatically grateful, and he was very much like, oh my God, he's like, nobody out here has given me $5. I'll maybe get like $1 or $2, but nobody's given me $5. So he was extremely grateful for it. there was a time several years after that I can remember I made deliberate effort to go and give a few dollars to a person that I saw outside of the grocery store. And he, without going into a tremendous amount of details, kind of shamed me for it. Like, what, you think I need your money? You think I'm out here? Like, he was framed towards being a bit like, I'm a free spirit, man. I'm a citizen of the world, and I don't need your pity or your charity or whatever. And I can remember in that moment taking something that I thought I was trying to do something good and thought I was trying to do something generous and helpful, and being very shamed for it and by it. And so whenever I hear stories like, I can appreciate if somebody were to say like, oh, you're talking about all these times that you were generous to people below your station. That's such a, an arrogant thing to say. I'm like, I feel like for the most part, we need to make effort to do our best to show good in the world. And part of the ways we do that is not only in thinking about and being more mindful of the places around us, but in telling those stories and in sharing our vulnerable and real feelings about, I don't know if I did that right. I don't know if I did the best I could do. I don't know if, I don't know if it's even appropriate for me to tell this story. I don't know if it's something, I don't know how to navigate this territory. That's okay. Like, there's freedom to get it wrong both in the telling and in the doing. But it is in the effort. It is in the facing the direction of wanting to help and facing the direction of wanting to get out of the. It's excuse me. It's amazing to me that we're having this conversation about a film like Ready or Not, because like so much of this film feels more like lighthearted than that. But I think that is the problem. Is there is a soul sickness that you can be drawn into, where it is not lost on me, and the metaphor is escaping me, and it is late, and I'm trying to be mindful of time and wind this down, but it is not lost on me that they are gamers, and that this is a game. The moment when the patriarch, whose name I am forgetting, I think his name is like Anthony or Tony or something, he pushes the son Daniel against the wall. He says, "You think this is a game?" And Daniel says back to him, "Yes,
right.
Hide and seek,
right.
Remember?" And that moment stood out to me so much of like, man, the ways in which life can feel sometimes like you're like, oh, I'm going to hit that thing and I'm going to hit it big. And my measurement of importance and my measurement of status is going to be, I get this much money and I do, this much thing. And then that is how I'm going to make my mark and solidify my station within the world. And it's like, it's not a game. It's not some sort of like winners and losers language.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. There are people who have profound struggles in their life, whether they are rich or poor. There are people who, I'm going to quote an old Paul Simon song, that just some folks' lives just roll easy. Like that's just part of what happens. And it is not necessarily for us to decide all of those different things, but what is for us to decide and what is for us to, I think, interrogate is the ways in which we can feel superior or better than. And I feel like in your story of sharing a water bottle with like, look, I've quoted it several times on this podcast, but Christ himself compelled people, like, even if you give just a cup of cold water, you will by no means lose your reward. I think it is a challenge to us to not, like the Pharisees of his contemporary day, do things so that they can be seen.
Sure.
And and say and do things so that we can receive the applause. I think that's up to the internal workings of our heart.
Right.
To interrogate where our mindset is from there. But all of that to say, there is value in the effort. Stumbling through it is okay.
Yeah.
Getting it wrong is okay. Not understanding everything from the get-go is okay, Twitter. Not understanding everything from the
What'd you call me?
is all right. It's like I get so furious at people in any degree who are like, you should know this by now. No, like we are all stumbling our way through this. Let's have an opportunity and a mindset to try to educate people and to be teachable ourselves. But it is okay if you're sitting there, you, my dear friend Nathan, you, listener, wherever you may be, it is okay if you're sitting there and don't know how to get this right and don't know how to treat it differently than you've been treating it before. But there is so much tremendous value in the effort to do so, to stop treating life like a win-lose, round by round game.
Sure.
And start treating it like a relationship, like a family, not a game empire where it is, zero sum and there's always got to be goats that you have to sort of offer up to maintain that status, but like a family, like a relationship. I'm not going to pivot us into reflections on Midsommar one way or another, but like genuine relationship is what we are after, and not a winning or losing, victory-loss type of game. So, yeah.
It's funny you say that. Working in a sales environment, we watch these, I would say, rather trite, quote-unquote, inspirational videos sometimes, and one of them recently, it's just silly sales speak, but one of the videos was like, winners win and losers lose. I was like, this is so dumb. And
yes, that's very dumb.
Not faithful at all to any version of Kingdom Living. Well, I am choosing to push past my self-consciousness and trusting the grace of our listeners to, as you've sort of articulated, we all learn this stuff together, and it's really funny. Yes. It's really funny. I shared this thinking, oh, this seems like something fun to share, and now I'm feeling weird about it. But all good. So can we go to the fog meter?
Let's, please, by all means. Let's go there. Ready or not?
To the fog meter we go. So we measure these films on a metric of fear and God, and I think I'll start on fear. And there are some harrowing elements to the film, but overall it's more just kind of comedy gore, right? And right, so I think for myself, I think I'm going to land at a 5 on the fear measure.
I'm kind of right there with you. I would probably escalate it up a bit to a 6. It's not a nightmarish film. There's some harrowing and suspenseful scenes, but it's more. It is less of the sort of frightful or even disturbing reality. It's just even the horror in it is pretty fun, which I love about it. For the God meter, though, man, this is a tough one. I think, in light of the character's name and my affection for Samara Weaving and my general overall affection for this film, I'm going to lean probably heavier than I should on the God meter. I'm going to give it some grace. I think it is about some interesting things, but even if it does not unpack those things in a deliberate way, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on about it. I'm going to lean high, and I'm going to go 9.
Wow.
Yep.
I think very highly of this film, but I do think most of its, no pun intended, cards are on the table. For substance meter, if we're playing the game and hedging a bit, I'll go 7.
Okay.
I think there's nothing there. I think what is there is pretty textual and not subtextual. That means that we give 2019's final entry in our month-long examination of your listener-voted films, Ready or Not, a 7 out of 10 on the fog meter.
Nice.
Which feels like a worthy score. I feel like it's probably a no-brainer, but Reed, do you recommend Ready or Not?
Highly recommend Ready or Not. Like unqualified. I highly recommend Ready or Not. It's a wonderful film. Fun. Super fun.
I, too, with little to no reservation, I think.
Yeah.
The only people I would caution on this is if you just can't handle any sort of fantastical kind of gore aspects, but it's... Right. It's a heck of a lot of fun.
Yep. Nope. It absolutely is. And that puts this month into the books. Nathan, it's happening next week. Listeners, if you have not gone to thefearofgodpodcast.com, if you have not clicked on that little banner up at the top to vote on 2020, you have got to get with the program because it is starting next week. Your year 2000 survey has already closed. As of this podcast, year 2000 has come and gone, and You have 2001 and through 2006 on the site. If you want to put in your votes for 2001, you have 2 days to do it before we're going to close that down from the site. So go there, cast your votes. We will be tallying this up, and starting next week, we are going to reveal your top 10 favorite horror films from the year 2000. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a heads up on one of the films that is on the list. It's not necessarily the top, but one of the films on the list, and the one that we will be specifically covering is Shadow of the Vampire from the year 2000. It stars John Malkovich and Willem Dafoe, and you should absolutely seek it out. Fair heads up, listener.
Eddie Izzard.
Oh, Eddie Izzard is in it. That's exactly right. Fair heads up, listeners, it is not available digitally. You're going to have to consult your public library. You're going to have to dust off that DVD player. It is at present not available anywhere digitally. But we will be covering Shadow of the Vampire next week as we kick off 2020. Nathan, I'm excited. Are you excited?
I am excited. This has been a good month.
Oh, man.
It's good.
Absolutely.
It's good to be back.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, listeners. Nathan, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I appreciate it. Listeners, don't forget that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but not the end of the conversation. And in that spirit, fear nothing else and be on your way rejoicing. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.
The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but not the end of the conversation. And you can continue the conversation in a variety of ways. You can start by visiting thefearofgodpodcast.com for all the latest news and episodes, or for merchandise and to contact us directly. You can follow us on Twitter at The Fear of God, on Instagram at Fear of God Podcast, or join the Facebook Fear of God discussion group. Special thanks to Jacob Hunt of jacobhuntcomics.com for our artwork, to Lee Wright, who helped me, Reed Lackey, write our theme music, and to Tyler Smith at morethanonelesson.com for making our show possible. Lastly, be sure to subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, and if you listen to us through iTunes, we would greatly appreciate a rating and a review. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.